So Queen Ashara has been confirmed to return, everyone knows this, but what most have missed from the prophecy is that she is coming back as something entirely different. The document stated that when Xal'atath fulfills the prophecy and completes the awakening, the Queen is going to return to reign over the sea, sky, and earth. Ashara is not really a Naga, she's originally an elf that was transformed into this form by N'Zoth. She has since abandoned N'Zoth and is right now in the Void Realm, serving the Void Lords directly. They're planning to use her in the midnight during the invasion, and when she comes back, we can expect something entirely different and something much more powerful. The elves are reuniting, and some Naga might want to join us, potentially become playable, but almost certainly Ashara is going to be a villain that we might not even recognize when she gets empowered by the Void Lords. If you want to get Dragonflight or anything else Warcraft related, Gamigo has some excellent deals that you can check out with my link below. Best of all, you can get software, gift cards, a bunch of games at below market prices. On top of that, you can also use my code DORON to get yet another discount, so make sure to check out my link below and grab some amazing deals at Gamigo. So, most of you know Ashara as the Naga leader and the Naga queen, but it is really important to note that this form, this All God form, is really just situational and it was given to her after the Sundering. However, at this point the form is entirely obsolete. Queen Ashara is mainly known as the original Night Elven leader and the leader of the Highborn, the most advanced spellcasters on all of Azeroth that had managed to essentially conquer the entire planet. Just look at the span of the Night Elven Empire back from the Chronicle. Then she started going a bit too crazy, and ultimately, as the Sundering happened and the Well of Eternity imploded and destroyed the world, she and her people fell into the sea. It was at this moment when N'Zoth essentially offered her to serve, and this is not really much of a choice. It was either drown or continue to live empowered in this new form. So the Naga were created as evolved Old God Highborn that built a brand new empire at the bottom of the sea where no one could access them. Keep in mind, this was 10,000 years ago when the situation was completely different. After the Sundering, the surviving Highborn were barely tolerated, and after they started dabbling with a little bit more magic, they were just outright exiled, and most of them ventured to the Eastern Kingdoms, which led to the creation of Quel'Thalas and Silvermoon and the Sunwell. Some Highborn remained, but they were in exile, so at this point, you essentially had three remaining groups of this original cast of spellcasters: the actual Highborn, High Elves, and the Naga. It is important to note that it was only like a decade or a little bit more ago that the Night Elves accepted the actual Highborn back. High Elves were really another continent, and the Naga were mainly seen as abominations and were Old God aligned, although certain Night Elves like Illidan and his Demon Hunters collaborated closely with the Naga. Overall though, Naga have almost always been the enemies. Now, some people have been talking about the Ashara redemption arc, but I really don't think that is going to be the case. You probably already heard about this entire theory, so I don't really want to repeat the same thing everyone is talking about of the Elven reunion happening at midnight, which is when the Naga will return. I do think it is very likely some Naga will join us and that they might even be playable, but I don't think Ashara is going to be redeemed. In fact, I think she might become one of the main villains. Now, this brings us back to the Song of the Depths, this really interesting document that essentially predicted the World Soul Saga about a year ago back in Dragonflight. I've read this in many videos, covered it a million times, but I feel like now that we know what is going on and we've been through the beta and we've seen the ending of Dragonflight, we can kinda look back at this iconic document with new eyes and we can see some things they had hidden between the lines. This document essentially confirmed Ashara is going to return, and we've been thinking either the War Within or Midnight, but as we had seen the entirety of 11.0 and we got hints for other patches, I think it is much more likely that the appearance will be happening in Midnight. At the moment, in the War Within, we have heavy goblin hints, which means 11.1 could very likely be Undermine and a goblin patch. 11.2 is very likely either going to be about the Arathi human homeland and this new Emperor Thoradin, or it is going to be about the Ethereals and something with Xal'atath and potentially yet another zone in Kazlagard that they're keeping hidden. There isn't really much room for a full-on Naga patch unless they just add them as side villains, but I don't think that is going to be the case. However, if we look at the document, we can also see this. So, the Song of the Depths was found with the Naga on the Dragon Isles, and it essentially predicts about everything that happened and will happen from the Dragonflight ending to the World Soul Saga. It starts with saying that the Queen calls beyond the Umbral Veil and that she has transcended the Circle of Stars and basks in her eternal grandeur. The time they had long awaited is happening now. So this essentially just explains what already happened, the ending of BFA. Also, it's important to know that while Ashara was the servant of N'Zoth, it was pretty evident she wanted to work with the Void directly, and she had essentially betrayed him, and as she said, she doesn't really want to work with the intermediaries. As we can learn from the new lore, the old gods are really not that big of a deal. Zelta the Harbinger seems to be a step ahead of them in the hierarchy, and the Void Lords are the real powerhouses. So Ashara was not really leaning back towards redemption here, which is why she didn't like N'Zoth. It's more like she realized there are way more potent power sources than this guy that she had to swear an oath to in the past, because that was really the only way to survive at this point in time. Then the document states that the Harbinger is gathering the children of the First Flash to reclaim what was lost. They must remember their vows and serve those to whom they owe fealty. This is so obviously about the Nerubians, but it's interesting that the Nerubians are called the Children of the First Flash is the original Black Empire creation. I'm guessing reclaim what was lost is referring to the Black Empire itself. This is also even more interesting now with the new mural found in Kazagar, showing very likely what happened in the past, potentially the Fifth Old God, and what they were like when they served their original masters. The document later states that while they work, the Naga will go to the Dragon Isles and another storm is rising. The rest is really evidence, so I don't want to talk much about it. It essentially states that a primal power wants to end Titans, which is Redicron, talks about hunger lost to the ages being reclaimed, which is so obviously Galakrond, and it talks about a dark heart left broken awake in the taking, which is obviously that artifact that Zelda had stole, which is called the Dark Heart. However, the end of this document is where it gets really good, and we get foreshadowing for the rest of the saga. When these things come to pass, the Harbinger will fulfill the final prophecy and complete the awakening. Only then shall our queen return to reign over sea and sky and earth. We must make ready. Rise, rise. Soon all that was hidden will be revealed. So now with the new info, this is actually a lot more interesting than when we had discussed it about a half a year ago. It essentially confirmed that Xal'Tath will win and complete the prophecy, because the Void Invasion obviously happens at midnight. The final prophecy is very likely Azeroth awakening as a Void being or being transformed into the Void, which will aid the Void Invasion because they say that the awakening will be complete. It is then said that the Queen will return. However, it is even more interesting that they say that she will reign over the sea, sky, and earth. The sea makes sense, I mean, Ashara is a Naga, but I feel like this is foreshadowing that she isn't coming back as just a Naga. Keep in mind what is currently going on. After BFA and the entire N'Zoth ordeal, she was sent into the Void Realm directly. She isn't actually in the material plane. Her return that the Naga are foreshadowing is essentially in midnight when the Void Invasion happens, which means that she will be used as a part of the Strike Force of the Void Lord Dimensius, the All-Devouring. This essentially confirms that there won't be a redemption, and really, Ashara is way too egotistical and power-hungry to just simply be redeemed. As I previously stated, she didn't rebel against N'Zoth to get rid of the old god yoke and free her people, but she rebelled because she actually wanted to serve higher powers. I think these higher powers are going to give her a much more powerful form than just a Naga. The Naga have served their purpose. It is likely that she's going to get transformed into something much more potent and powerful. Keep in mind, they say that she's going to rule the sea, earth, and the sky. This could be a figure of speech, as the Naga have been hiding in the water this entire time, but I also think it could mean that she's going to get a flying form as well. I mean, here doors are open for some kind of a Naga redemption. I think that it is going to be a split, and that some Naga might want to rejoin the Highborn and their own people, and they don't want to follow Queen Ashara into her madness. This new form might show them that she's beyond crazy and she wants to destroy Azeroth. Think of it like Sylvanas and the Forsaken. We might get a split where some might return, some of them might even lose their Naga form or get an evolved form if they turn against their original masters, while the other Naga are going to get even more empowered under the new Queen Ashara. This lore of course could lead to playable Naga. However, the most interesting bit is that, as I stated, Ashara took this Naga form, bent the knee to the Zod, because there was no other choice. Like, if I poisoned you and only I had the antidote, I mean, you would really accept anything to survive. However, Ashara isn't about breaking free and reuniting with Tyrande and Malfurion. I mean, remember, she was the leader of the higher caste of Night Elves. She saw herself as superior to them all. She ruled over the entirety of Azeroth at this point in history. She wants to come back with vengeance and to reclaim her rule over the world and not make friends with the Night Elves she previously saw as simple savages. Now, she found the real guys, the real powers, and we might see her as anything from a crazy Void Naga to maybe even something as ridiculous as a Void Lord. I'm almost certain a new model is coming, and it's going to be unlike anything we had ever seen before. Thank you for watching. Check out the new Light Necromancers and potentially Undead Light Emperor by clicking on the screen, and check out my video on Ancient Training by clicking on the screen as well. See you next time!